Hi, my name is Jim Travis. I'm a director of the London Skateboard Co-op, the first skateboard co-op known at this point in time. We're kind of like pioneers in this whole idea of being a co-op as a skateboard shop, but in the reality of things, it's a bunch of friends that have banded together, put their resources together to start a skateboard shop in London at a point when it was needed for London to have a shop. Okay, well, yeah, with the scene in London and the skateboarding here, we started essentially because a skateboard shop named Legacy, which was the core shop in London at the time, was closing down, and we knew that there was going to be a void as far as like a hub and a shop, so we put our money together. I think at the time it was 6 of us. We all like put in about $4,000 or $5,000 each, and we started a skateboard shop with a strong inventory in a centralized location in London. There was always a very thriving skateboard community in London. The one thing that made it different was that there really wasn't a lot of outdoor events or skateboarding events, and that was kind of like our mandate right from the start, is that we were going to hold like several events every season. This year we're up to 3, and I think by the end of the summer there's going to be 5 events. Some of the events this year have been kind of like co-sponsored with other people, which is a little bit new to us. Like, we usually will get like a handful of sponsors and kind of do all the legwork ourselves, but this year we've had some help in the community with other skateboarders, other businesses, and it helps a lot because it winds up being a lot of work by the end of an event. I've been a skateboarder since I was about 14 years old, and that's stretching back to the mid-80s. And you know, like, it's just something I've always done. And in the earlier parts of the 2000s, back in my hometown, I helped put together a skate park there and ran events there, and I've ran events kind of throughout the years and just done stuff with skateboarding. Made videos and did everything as far as like a behind the scenes guy could do, you know. And so I just continued that kind of thing here. And the passion too was like kind of like an obligation to skateboarding, just to make sure that the scene was strong in the city. And same thing with back in my hometown too. I just wanted to make sure it like kind of like did something for skateboarding and was kind of like on the map a little bit. As far as the co-op option for the business, it kind of came about in brainstorming sessions when we were all together, and we were all kind of realized we were starting this like power in numbers kind of format, right? So I can't even remember at this point in time who like kind of just said co-op, but it kind of like clicked with everybody that we were kind of trying to do something like that. And it was at the time a very powerful kind of like business model. You know, started looking into it, thought it fit what we were trying to do, and so we just we did it. We became a co-op. It's had its ups and downs as far as kind of like a business model, but anytime that you probably have like a bunch of big personalities together, it would be challenging. I kind of explained it to some people like you're in a band with your friends, right? And you're all doing stuff, and creatively some people's ideas will get used and won't get used, and some people get a little bit hurt feelings, but usually like it works, you know, well enough that people understand like, well, we voted on it, it was a thing, and so it's fair in its way of doing things, but not everybody will always be happy in a co-op. Yeah. I mean, you could take the co-op word out of it, and it's still just a group of people doing something together, and there's going to be like butting heads, and there's going to be like, you know, triumphs too. Like it's about all a little bit of everything. There's a few bike shops that kind of work under the co-op banner, like Gremlin, and I think the other one might be called Outspoken. And we've done a few little things here and there with them. I'm racking my brain to try to remember, but I know that we've done stuff with other few kind of like local co-op related businesses. I just can't remember the names of them. I'm pretty motivated to run a skateboard shop kind of out of an obligation, once again, to make sure that there is the proper skateboard shop and hub for skateboarding in London. I just couldn't imagine us not being around and it kind of being left to like corporate shops like West 49 and Zoomies to like kind of spearhead the community. They're not really like that. They don't hire based off of people with experience in the scene. They're just not a good source for a community-based skateboard scene. As long as there isn't another proper shop in town, we'll stay open to like lead the charge as far as skateboarding. When you go in here, like you pretty much see what you picture a skateboard shop to look like. Like it's classic in its style. You feel like, you know, because we all come from like 80s and 90s skateboarding, that we wanted to make sure it reflected that. We utilize every like square foot in this place pretty much for product and just everything.
Are those like your written boards or like friends?
No, these are all mostly donated. One of them came from me, but
which one?
The one beside the light with the, it's
okay.
Very beat up one. Very beat up.
I see it.
Yeah.
Sweet.
We call that the history lesson, and it's basically like the 1980s, kind of like old school shaped skateboards. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. Like there's actually substantial dollar value to that ceiling. As beat up as they are, they're worth something. So far, we've only had one location. We've been at Dundas and Adelaide. And we've seen a lot of like ups and downs in the neighborhood. When we first moved in 10 years ago, it actually was really on a big upswing. There was some new businesses coming to the neighborhood, and it was looking really good. And then between COVID and a lengthy road work program on the street here, kind of turned into a more seedier neighborhood in London, more seedier than it was before. And we're trying to get back to, bringing it back to a level of like gentrification and wanting to have the right people come back to the neighborhood and help it thrive. We like being here because it is a little grimier than your average area, and that's kind of cool for a skateboard shop, but we would also like walk by traffic and, good people that want to do shopping in the downtown core, and kind of bring back a sense of brick and mortar style business as opposed to mail ordering. Because once again, mail ordering doesn't really do anything for your community. We try to give back as much as we can. As a goal, like setting goals for the future, really like we're pretty low key about that. Pretty much staying open is the number one goal. Number two goal is trying to advance a little bit. We try to set events for the season. We try to, been involved a couple times in indoor skateboard kind of programs. Always on the lookout to try to like advance into like doing an indoor skate park. But, all the stars have to align properly to do that, because it's an expensive venture. And then in history, skateboard parks indoor have never really been too successful, so that's why you never see like too many long-running indoor skate parks. But if the right opportunity presented us, we would obviously be interested in it. And, same thing with like the potential for moving the location. It's never like a thing that we wouldn't do, but until something comes up and falls in our lap, we're not looking. So like as far as opportunities, like just try to like see what is around us and opportunities that can come to us, and then if something is cool, then we'll consider it. Some of the things that have changed over the last 10 years is there's been some personnel changes. We lost two founding members and gained a new member. So that's definitely kind of been an important thing as far as like a format and just the flow of how a co-op's supposed to run. It's not always supposed to be the same dudes doing it forever. Like, you know, eventually, like as time goes by, you know, there's that kind of thought that some of the older guys would bow out and new guys would buy into the program and become the new members. It's not going to be for everybody, and it does come with a substantial startup cost for anybody who wants to be a part of it. You know, at the time, losing the one member, the first one we ever lost, we thought it was going to be kind of devastating. But the reality was we picked up pretty quickly and just kept on carrying on. The business is kind of like a little bit self-sustainable. As long as you have a little bit of business knowledge and, you know, pay for what you need to pay for, and you can keep the flow going for years. We decided to bank with Libro because Libro was like a co-op bank and a credit union, and so we went with them. Also too, there was, I don't remember the exact name of the organization, but there was like a co-op organization that is in place that we talked to a few times to, you know, get information. And then also too, we went around to some, yes, just remembered, it was called On Co-op. They were there as co-op support to try to like help you see through your plan. And we also visited some local co-op businesses like the London Food Co-op. It's just down the road from where we are now. And we just kind of picked their brains a little bit. I think that's where we originally thought of being like a consumer co-op. And then after a little while, we realized that it really was like a worker style co-op, and that we were actually the co-op. But we still offered a membership rewards program for our customers and tried to always pass on savings to the skateboard community instead of having like wildly inflated prices, making sure things were reachable for the average skateboarder. Decision making within a co-op structure, by the book, it's supposed to be very equalized and voted on and stuff like that. But as far as this business goes, there is a few of us that kind of take on more roles than other guys in the co-op. So it's kind of boiled down to like, we have a few decision makers. Sometimes stuff is time sensitive and doesn't get a chance to go through the whole process and be like, well, we got to make an order today, and you know, this is who's here, or this is who's answering the email. So he'll make an order, or he'll make a decision on like a shop board or a t-shirt run or something like that. It kind of like winds up being, sometimes unfortunately certain things go a little rogue. Other than that, try to do a lot of it with everybody's knowledge, you know, because that's a fair system. The difference maker for a co-op compared to different other style business models, I think for us, is that a lot of the language, legal jargon was already put into place for us, and we just kind of had to like find contracts and stuff like that for a co-op, which I think it was all found online. We slightly worded it to fit what we were doing. With a co-op, you know, it's supposed to be a very equal kind of like workload, which doesn't always work out that way. Oh, interesting. Having meetings as far as like a co-op and trying to do it along the lines with taking minutes and fair opportunities for people. We used to be a lot more diligent with the meetings, and sometimes they get heated, and sometimes there wasn't a lot to talk about. So there was always filling it up with ideas and trying to brainstorm things for the future. Yeah, meetings were very important as far as structuring what we were going to do. So we were on the same page. Everybody had knowledge of like what everybody else was going to be doing, and you know, we could delegate jobs out to people and work within the group, the main core dudes. And if we couldn't do it between the 5 or 6 of us, we would also brainstorm like, well, what one of our friends is a good graphic designer, or like who can weld, like who do we know that can weld to make a rail for us. And we just kind of like, you know, use those meetings as a way to like flush out what we were going to do for the next little bit of future. I think maybe some of the challenges in the early goings is really not knowing how a co-op functions. And to be honest, it's still challenges today. Like, I kind of feel like when we first started, we wanted to go with a member-driven style of co-op that would be kind of like customer-related and everything. And then after about a year of being a co-op, I think we all came to the conclusion that we weren't really a customer-based co-op, but we were a worker co-op, and that the main core of the membership was really the directors, because they were the guys filling in the seat at the skateboard shop, doing some graphic design, administrative work, or even being transportation. You know, having a truck and being a co-op member winds up being like a good commodity, right? Like, we have somebody that can drive ramps to little demos or competitions, and I mean, because that's like a big part of it is definitely the events.